The following transmission contains unencrypted instances of explicit language. Mature audiences are cleared to proceed.
Shall we begin? Let's begin.
Who knew that Charlize Theron was such a huge comic book fan? She got an advance copy of The Coldest City graphic novel before it was even published in 2012, and made bringing that story to the screen a personal passion project. I'm Todd.
And I'm Dave, and we like to talk about spy movies.
The elevator pitch? It's John Wick, but with a hot chick. The final product attempts to meld the paranoia of the final years of the Cold War with a bangin' 80s soundtrack and some of the most jaw-droppingly awesome fight scenes ever filmed. We're talking the tradecraft of 2017's Atomic Blonde in this episode of Spies Like Us. It's a 2017 movie that's set in 1989, right before the Berlin Wall falls. In fact, we get to see the wall come down in the movie.
Yeah, that's right. We got to see the Ronald Reagan speech, the famous, we don't trust each other. It's not that we don't trust each other because we're armed, but we're armed because we don't trust each other. Gorbachev, bring this wall down, you know.
Oh, yeah. Hell of a soundtrack. I've been, like, the songs have been going through my head, like, all week while I've been doing my notes for this.
It was definitely a great soundtrack. And, like, it didn't feel out of place. There's a lot of movies where they just drop songs for the sake of dropping songs.
Oh, right. Yeah, of course.
And it kind of felt like that a little bit, but it wasn't, like, overwhelming. Like, it felt right because the movie, the pacing of the movie, it just kind of fit.
And there are a ton of needle drops. I mean, it's all through the movie.
Yeah. I mean, I remember when we watched this, we were just like, oh, yeah, blah, blah, blah. You were super excited for Ministry.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, the timing is really good, too. The timing, like, when there'll be parts where the music's kind of, like, just building up to something, but then, like, right when it breaks and you go into, like, the chorus or something is when, like, the action explodes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, pretty well done. I like all the songs except that one. The one I'm annoyed by is that one Voices Carry song. I don't care for that one. I'm a little annoyed that one's stuck in my head.
Is that the one that got played twice?
Yeah, that's the one that connects Lorraine and LaSalle.
Oh, okay.
Tell you what, this movie loves some cigarette smoke.
Yeah, absolutely. There's quite a bit of it. I think its only rival would be Peaky Blinders. There's a lot of cigarette smoke. Oh, dude, it's crazy in that show. But there's a lot in this movie. So.
Yeah. Reminds me of this one old Mystery Science Theater joke. Back in the 50s, you were required to smoke.
I love how she's smoking like everywhere too. It's yeah. Well, hey, that's a callback to our first episode. Like the first Man Who Knew Too Much, where like everybody was smoking. In fact, like our main villain just dies with a cigarette in his mouth.
Right? Yeah. Does Percival die with a cigarette? He should have. He should have died with a cigarette in his mouth.
I think he did.
He might have.
Yeah, he lit one up when he ran into her, and he has that whole monologue in his head, or to her or whatever, with the flash cuts or whatever.
But this is the first solo directing effort by the co-director of the John Wick movies. Get a little confused there. I know he's like the co-director of the first one. Maybe he's the main director of the other two. Even though this movie isn't as like beginning to end non-stop action. I mean, it's got that glorious fight scene in the East Berlin tenement building. I
mean, if we're gonna talk about the fight kind of now, what I loved about the fighting in this film was it was super realistic. Like I was saying that the trailer kind of turned me off, but watching the actual film, people get tired. She constantly has to like resort to like improvised weapons and stuff like that. And then like, it's my favorite part of the movie is when that guy tries to stab her and he's like pretty much like blood loss, head trauma, tired as shit. And he just goes, ugh. And she just fucks him up like super easy.
Yeah. Well, I like when she like is trying to stand up and she literally just like, it's like she's drunk. She like just trying to stand up. She like bashes herself into a door and falls back on her ass.
Yeah. Obviously concussion. or like some sort of head trauma going on with her. Like, yeah, like the whole movie had a bunch of this.
I'm
And like,
gonna I'm gonna go ahead and say I think this is, for my money, this is the best fight sequence of all time. I can't think of one that tops it.
I definitely agree. Um, like I've seen a couple of the John Wick films that everybody's like, oh, the fighting, and I just really, really appreciated how much people got tired.
Right. And
Yeah.
of course, it's a long sequence. I forgot to check how many minutes it clocks in at, but I went and looked it up, and it's actually stitched together from 40 different sequences, shot over 4 days.
And you can't even tell. It's yeah.
It is ridiculous how good computer editing has gotten.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some places where you can tell just because you kind of know what to look for. Like when the camera moves, like very quickly, that's always a stitch.
Yeah.
But also, because otherwise, like, after watching it a few times, I'm sitting there thinking, like, wait, when did they have time to start, like, putting blood on her face and in her hair and stuff?
Right, exactly. Yeah, they would have had to cut it in. Because they definitely didn't have a lot of moments where they could have those like pill things that you can bite, or like things where you just smash in your face or whatever.
Mm-hmm. There's I think only 2 places where they used Charlize's stunt double in it, and it's both times where she's just getting like thrown like into a bookcase or something, where even though it's a bookcase that's made to shatter safely or whatever, there's sharp edges or whatever, and you just don't want to take that risk. But all the fighting is her.
Oh, okay,
which is great, and especially after we saw the Old Guard recently, like I'm just sitting here like, if this country does not wake up and start taking her seriously as an action star, I don't know what the fuck I'm gonna do. Like, what does she have to do?
I think she's taken pretty seriously. I mean, she's pretty hot. So. Like, and I don't mean like physically hot, attractive. Not that she isn't, but that like a lot of people talk about her, and she draws a big crowd.
Yeah, it's good. She really deserves it. Speaking of like computer interaction with stunts, that part really early in the movie where Gascoigne gets run into by the car, like that can't be a stunt. There's no way. Action movies with ass-kicking women, like, that's so far up my wheelhouse, and it seems so annoying to me that every time a good one comes out, there's something at least like slightly doesn't quite connect with audiences enough to get a sequel.
Yeah, right.
I don't think this one's gonna get a sequel.
No, which is kind of sad because it was
gonna get a sequel.
Oh yeah, I haven't heard anything about that. Yeah, that kind of sucks. But yeah, there's not a whole lot of spy women like stars, but I think it's starting to become more of a thing now.
Right. I mean, I wish we could do a whole series, but like literally, like if we did like 5 female spy action movies, we'd pretty much have emptied the barrel.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. No, but I mean, we did Bourne last, and Pamela, she wasn't the main star, but she was, like she was a prominent character, and I liked how much she ran the show. I really liked her character a lot.
Yeah, that was definitely nice to see. I did go ahead and check up. I couldn't find a full discussion group, but just from some reviews of the comic, first interesting thing, the comic wasn't called Atomic Blonde. It's called The Coldest City.
Oh.
And it's the first of 3, or at least a planned 3. I think the second one is out. But if they did do an Atomic Blonde sequel, they would have to deviate and do something else, because the second one of that is actually it's a prequel about the David Percival character.
Oh, really? Oh, that's interesting.
Which I would see.
Yeah, especially if they brought back Professor X.
Oh yeah, and yeah, we're doubling up on the Professor X in short sequence here because we got McAvoy, who's the most recent Professor X, and the guy that played Alan Dulles in The Company was the first.
Oh really?
He's the voice from the '80s animated cartoon.
Oh, okay. Oh, well, that's pretty cool. Yeah.
So that means now we need to find a spy movie with Patrick Stewart in it.
Yeah. Hell yeah. I'm sure we could find one.
Right. And then the comic, I couldn't get a copy of it, but apparently it's much more in like a Jean Le Carré kind of mode. It's not full of action and fighting. She's not blonde in it. She's not even like, she's not this like femme fatale kind of character. She's more of just a like, dedicated civil servant that just has a lot more of that Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy-esque kind of
oh, really?
espionage story. Yeah.
I'm totally gonna buy the comics now.
Yeah.
You sold me.
I want to. Yeah, but I would totally dig on comics that were done in this movie style as well.
Yeah.
So let's see. This movie, we got. Well, okay. I'll start here by. I want to say this and also ask you about it. I will say that I know that I was actually pretty confused by this movie the first time I watched it. And I was pretty confused by this movie the second time I watched it. And from what I've read, I'm not alone. A lot of audiences found this movie to be pretty hard to follow. How about you?
Yeah. I think the general idea wasn't that difficult, but I think trying to put the pieces together didn't make a lot of sense. And there was a lot that happened too fast, especially like the dialogue where you get switched back and forth. So trying to figure out who is doing what and why was kind of tough. And it took us a couple times going back and arguing with each other over stuff to really put it together.
I also noticed that the movie doesn't, it keeps jumping back and forth between characters as well as jumping back and forth between time. But a lot of times we'll just see 90 seconds of what McAvoy's doing, and then we'll go and check in with 90 seconds of something Lorraine's doing, 40 seconds of something LaSalle's doing, and then we'll come back to McAvoy, and it's only like a couple minutes after what we saw him doing just, a couple minutes ago.
Yeah, and it's like something completely different.
Well, they could have just stayed with him, when we see the example I'm going to give is when we see him follow Bactine to the watch shop, and then we know from the story a few minutes later he kills him and takes the watch, but just in between those two things the movie wanders off to show us some other stuff, and it's just stuff like that I thought made the pieces kind of hard to fit together.
Yeah.
But I personally, on a deep analysis of this movie, I think that it I don't know, the movie's kind of hiding a lot of its warts. There's a bunch of stuff I think just doesn't really make a lot of sense, and it also feels like the movie is hedging its bets on almost everything. It's like the movie Clue, where they had the 4 different endings or whatever.
Right.
I feel like this movie could have had 4 completely different endings, and any one of them could have been justified because, she's working for everyone. Everyone's recording everyone. MI6 is seems to be at one moment using her to flesh out McAvoy, and then almost in the same breath, a minute later they're trying to imply that they're using McAvoy to flesh her out.
Yeah. It's there's a lot. I mean, we kind of had a whole discussion that we'll get into in the podcast, and you think it was kind of messed up from the start, but I think it was just kind of not well put together at the end. And but you're right, literally there's so much that could have happened, and it didn't really it wasn't really justified towards the end. I don't know.
There's just a whole bunch of spy stuff going on.
Yeah.
That a lot of it just doesn't seem to be necessary to the plot. It's just fun to look at. And so it makes it hard to tease out the parts that actually are important to the plot.
Right.
But I think we've got a way that we're going to approach this and try to defuse this thing without having it blow up in our face. And that's to start with just the core like mechanic of the movie, of the plot, let's say. And that is it's a MacGuffin plot.
Right.
It's a plot where the thing that everyone's chasing, and everyone's chasing it, like the diamond in Snatch, or like the map in Waterworld, or countless other movies. Like it's a commonly used thing that you can do to give everyone something to do, even though the thing everyone's chasing isn't in it of itself. It's not the real thing that we care about.
Right. It's just kind of a plot device, but the story of friendship and getting to know each other.
Yeah. And in this case, of course, the MacGuffin is the list.
Right.
There's a neat twist on it, I think, which is that there's two copies of the list. There's one that's in the watch, and there's one that's in Spyglass's head.
Right. And by the way, just for the audience, the list is a list of agents and who their code names are, and it reveals their identities. So the one thing really didn't make sense. We think it's a list of a lot of different agents from different agencies and like double agents and stuff, but I can't tell if it's supposed to be a list of KGB agents or if it's a list of everybody.
From the comic book, it's a list of everybody.
Okay. And
that was the idea I got from the movie as well.
Yeah, that's kind of what it feels like, but then it's kind of like, well, why is it that I think that makes it a little bit more complicated. Because if it was just a list of KGB agents, them wanting to get it makes sense because they don't want it getting out, and everybody else wanting to get it would because they want that. But if it's like a list of everybody, a lot of that information is already kind of known. I don't know. It's just kind of hard to piece together. It's kind of like kind of a freebie where it's just like, this is how valuable it is. It's a list of everyone, right. Everybody wants it, And
so I just want to get this out of the way because like the list seems to have just come from nowhere. Like if you really think about it, like somebody had to compile the list. So, and I guess that would be the Stasi, which is where it's coming from. And if they had that information, then they would have given it to the KGB. So the list just kind of comes out of nowhere. It's like an immaculate conception of a plot device that we'll just stipulate we're just accepting that.
Right. Well, everything centers around Berlin. So someone in Berlin compiling a list like that would make sense. But being able to figure out all those people would be pretty difficult.
Right. But what I'm saying, it's not only that, but like that means there's a lot of people would have to have been involved.
Right. And you would have to have like a spy network of the gods. You know what I mean? Like to even get all of that, like all those key players, but the reason the reason why the Stasi wouldn't have given it to KGB is because he was trying to seek asylum and get to the West. Like he was defecting.
Right. But he can't be the only Stasi officer that has the information.
Oh, I see what you mean.
It's just the idea that this list is the only place this information resides.
Oh, yeah.
That doesn't make sense. That's what I mean by immaculate conception. Like this list would have had to have 100 parents.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
But instead, it just seems to exist out there. So that's fine. It's so core to the movie. I'm not even gonna give it minus 5 points.
Yeah, and they didn't even try and explain it. It's just kind of like when you start a movie in the middle of conflict. You just gotta accept it. This is the premise. There's a list. People want it.
Exactly. Now, there being 2 copies of the list, though, I love how that gives you so much more to play with, and I feel like the movie did some stuff with that, but if you think about it, you could really do a lot with that, because, you know, like if when there's a single MacGuffin, it's just binary. Like, you have it or you don't. You win the game or you lose the game.
Right.
If there's 2 copies of the list and multiple players playing the game, then you could have a whole bunch of different game states or win conditions that each are worth like different amounts of points. You know, like sometimes I like to think of these spy plots, try to unravel them kind of like a board game.
Right.
You know, like maybe the most ideal, highest number of points, the biggest victory would be something like, you have 1 copy of the list, the other copy is destroyed, and nobody knows that you have it.
Right.
That would be like maximum points.
Right.
Now, as long as you have a copy of the list by the end of the game, you are considered like kind of in the winner's circle, but maybe like someone else also has a copy of the list. So, you know, it's like a tie between you two and everyone else loses.
Or if you don't get both of them, you lose. Like, you can't just have one, you know, if you had a character or something like that, where if you don't get both of them, then you've lost.
Right, right. And so we're going to, in the briefing room, we're going to remember to talk about each faction along those lines, because everybody has, some people have slightly different relationships with how they would score their tally at the end of the game.
Right, because it's like you bring up a really good point. It's not just about the information on the list; it's about who has it. So,
and who knows who has it.
Right, and yeah, exactly, and who knows who has it. So, like, one faction might just want the information; they don't care if anybody else has it; they just want the information. One faction might be wanting to be the only person that has the list, and nobody else has it, or one person has to make sure nobody has it. Period, and you have to be the only one that has both of them. You know what I mean? So it's yeah. I think you really brought up a really good point of what made the story so well interactive with the plot line is that there's so many possibilities of what motivates different, I guess, players on the board.
Yeah. So in the briefing room, which I think we're ready to head to, I think our best play here would be to take each faction and or character like in turn, probably start from the minors and work our way up to the major characters, which are obviously McAvoy and Lorraine.
Right.
Or I keep saying McAvoy. Probably I should start calling him Percival.
Percival. Yeah, Percival.
Yeah. David Percival, isn't it?
Yes, David Percival.
All right. Let's get in there.
Retinal scan complete. Validating security clearance. Clearance granted. You may now enter the briefing room.
So let's tackle MI6. You say you got thoughts on their win condition here?
I think their objective is to just get the list, period. Well, most people don't know there's 2 copies. During the time of the story, not, you know, pre-interrogation, they didn't know that 2 lists existed, or at least I don't think they did. But I think their win condition isn't, like, the reason why the MacGuffin game for this movie is so interesting is because the existence of 2 lists and who has them and who knows about them. And I think MI6, when they're briefing Lorraine about the mission, they're like, we'll find out who Satchel is. He's been a thorn in our side for years, which we're going to talk about later why that's annoying. But they want to find the mole. So I think they just want the information. They don't want the list physically for the value of it to sell it like a lot of our, like, you know, free market agents, or they don't want it to protect an identity. They want to know just one person, and who that person is Satchel. And that there's this agent named Satchel, and that's what sets up like kind of like the mystery of the movie. Who's Satchel? You know. Now
they claim their motivation is that the information in that list could extend the Cold War for another 40 years. That's their claim to her. So by that logic, they could be assumed to get a slight minor victory if the list was just destroyed. Because I assume what they mean is that it could extend the Cold War for 40 years if someone, bad has it. Obviously, if we have it.
Oh,
I
see.
We wouldn't abuse it. Oh, no.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. I see. Oh, okay, all right, you have a good point. So they do want both copies. Even though they don't know both copies exist, they would want both copies because the information extends the Cold War, and they're trying to end the Cold War. Okay, I see.
Right. But they also have that other like bonus condition of exposing Satchel, and I don't think they state that they think the list would expose Satchel. They just kind of mention that to her as a side thing.
But they did make it a point. We need to find out who Satchel is because he's been a thorn in our side for years. So that leak of information has caused problems for the MI6.
They need nobody other than them to have the list. They seem to completely forget about Bactine when they find out about Spyglass.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the movie, they have seemed to completely forget about the list entirely. Like they're just concerned about the Satchel situation and the fact that she killed David Percival.
Right. But they did ask her where the list was, and she was like, "Oh, I don't have it." But yeah, it seemed to. Yeah, you're right. It seems more like they were more hung up on figuring out who Satchel was.
Okay, so yeah, I guess I don't understand why they even. Well, I guess because she killed David Percival, that's a reason to bring her in to talk, right?
He was one of their biggest agents in the station.
He's the head. He's the station head.
Yeah, the Berlin station, the MI6 Berlin station head during the fucking Cold War, right?
Oh, right. Yeah. That's an important person.
Yeah, right. And they were like, "You killed an agent of the Crown," blah 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 blah. So like they were really pissed about it. But yeah.
Well, I have it as my worst number 3 tradecraft. I actually didn't catch that they asked her about the list and she said she didn't have it. It seemed to me like they just like dropped the subject, which was just weird to me because at the beginning of the movie that seemed to be like the entire point to them. Right.
Yeah,
and it's just kind of like even if they didn't forget about it, it's like the movie forgets about it. Like, there should have been some kind of resolution there. Like, she gives them a fake or edited copy, that leaves her out of it.
Right.
Something like that.
I completely agree. Like, in this, I think we'll get into this more as we keep going, but I think the biggest problem with some of the loose ends is just how they kind of ended everything without any explanation. Like, they kind of crafted this whole really awesome situation, and then it just ends, and there's these loose ends. Like they just kind of like manufactured an ending, kind of. I mean, not really, because it was still a really good story, but yeah. So I definitely agree with you that it's like the movie forgot the list was a big deal.
Yeah, exactly. Then there's just this stupid thing where like, they sent her a message. He says, and she's like, this is during debriefing. She's like, yeah, I got your message. And then the message, apparently, they send someone from the CIA to talk to her.
Yeah.
Why?
And threaten, I guess, her new interest or some shit, which was LaSalle.
For no reason that I can imagine. Like, I don't understand, like, why John Goodman has any thing to say about LaSalle. And speaking of which, he's her boss and they have an opportunity to have, a conversation in the middle of all this, and they don't.
Yeah, that whole sending in John Goodman thing kind of didn't make sense to me. It was cool to see John Goodman more on screen, but it's like he just came in to threaten her or let her know of the dangers of the situation, and then he just leaves. It was kind of silly. Other than it's the Cold War, and the U.S. is a big player in the Cold War, and that's going to really show her the gravity. I don't know. don't know. I'm grabbing for straws with this.
Don't grab too hard, buddy.
Yeah.
One thing I decided after a while of trying to tease this movie apart is I'm not sure what cartoon sequence it was that I saw, but something like said, there's some cartoon gag where a character's trying to like stuff something into something, and like they. One part of it's poking out, and they push that part in, and something else sticks out.
Right.
And then they go over and try to shove that in, and a third thing pops out.
Right.
And it just never will completely fit. There's always something to play with.
Right.
In this movie, there's always something to like theorize on what this means or that means. But every time I do, it makes another piece of it fall off the wagon.
Right. Right.
Is how I feel about it.
Yeah.
And a lot of it comes down to this whole triple agent thing in the first place, which I guess it's kind of necessary to the story, like, because the core story is that she has a hidden interest in the list above and beyond her purported interest as a representative of MI6. So she has to have a secret.
Right. Yeah.
And the secret that they came up with just becomes problematic for me,
Yeah.
The way that she's working all three sides. And again, that goes to my major thing about this movie is like, with her working all three sides, like you can say anything at the end.
Right.
And kind of walk away thinking that it all made sense, but
But okay, so I guess this is a good time to talk about the pronoun thing then.
Sure.
Yeah, she's basically, so spoiler alert, she's Satchel. So I hope you've seen the movie. But the way they describe it is instead of her being Satchel working for the KGB, it turns out she's been working for the CIA the whole time. And maybe that's the reason why the John Goodman scene at the wall was really important, was to like establish him a little bit more. But what I loved was how much the pronoun game was played when talking about Satchel. MI6 just assumes it's a guy. But when Percival finds out who it is, he doesn't say, I know the identity of Satchel, and I know who she is. He's like, I know the identity of Satchel. And yes, I'm very close to Satchel, Right. And then when she talks about Satchel, and when other, like, there's a lot of dialogue where there's like a pronoun game being played and like the significance of which pronouns are being used, which I liked. But for the most part, it's assumed by most people that it's a guy, and it turns out to be Lorraine. So I kind of wanted to point that out.
All right. Anything else on MI6?
No, I think we're good.
All right. How about the scary KGB?
Oh, the KGB.
What's their win condition's pretty simple, right?
Yeah, I think they just want the list.
Sure.
To protect Satchel's, I guess, identity or something. I actually don't know why they want the list, other than so they can get other agents' names.
Yeah, I don't think anybody, or at least nobody says so. I don't think anybody says that the list is thought to be a key to exposing Satchel. Even though we find out it is.
Well, MI6 does during the briefing, the early briefing.
I don't think so. I think they just gave her a special warning along the way to watch out for Satchel.
No, well, I mean, maybe I'm misremembering, but I know that they did say we got to get that traitor Satchel. He's been a thorn in our side for years. So, but maybe you're right. Maybe it's not explicit, and it's just kind of assumed that the identity of Satchel would be revealed.
Right, but we definitely don't have any reason to think that the KGB thinks that. So they just want the list. Right.
But I think this is where we had a big disagreement, was that towards the beginning of the movie, they tell her contact is Percival because, he's the head MI6 agent at Berlin Station. And she gets out of the airport and there's these two dudes and they're like, oh, they sent us to pick you up. And in the car ride, they're driving real fast and they're like, "Hey, do you remember Bremovich? You know him. He's wondering what you're doing in Berlin." And then they start driving to this like underground parking lot, and she starts to realize, well, I think she realizes her life is in danger. He thinks she just killed these two guys out of the blue. Todd thinks that she killed these guys out of the blue. I think, from the dialogue and from some of the shots, she had realized her life's in danger and that she got picked up by the wrong guys and just fights her way out.
Yeah, I don't, like I said, I don't buy it. It feels to me like someone had started writing this part, that had written this part before they had decided how the story was going to end. Because when you do know that she's working for everybody. So when you do know that she is working for Bremovich, the idea that he might want to have a chat with her when she lands in Berlin, right, makes perfect sense to me.
Right.
And I don't like the idea that, I can't get there that he would have given the order of, hey, go grab her and kill her. And it's the little thread on the sweater that I pull hardest is the fact that they gave her a card, which was a card that would lead her to a place where she could meet and talk with Bremovich.
Right.
Why do you give her that? Why do you give her that information if you're about to kill her a few minutes later?
Well, maybe they're not trying to kill her, but she obviously realizes that she got picked up by the wrong guys, and the dude hides his gun under his coat, and so she probably, I don't know, now that we're kind of talking this out on the podcast, I'm starting to see that you do have a big point of her attacking them, but I think it's because she's stuck in the car. Writing wise, I don't know why. Well, she probably just doesn't know who these guys are. And she's in a car and she realizes, and they're armed, and she realizes that this isn't her contact and that they lied to her. So she had to step up and fight. So I'm a little confused.
I mean, they go after, when they go after her later
Wait,
in the movie.
Unless they're doing risk management. And they know the list is going to be because the list is out and it's on the market. So they got to tie up a loose end. They can't have their double agent running around because she could be flipped.
Okay.
And the only time she meets Bremovich are in kind of public places up until the end.
I mean, when they go after, in East Berlin later in the movie, he doesn't say go kill her. He says bring her to me, and the guy, I call him Keys because he's the guy that gets the keys stuck in his face.
Yeah.
He's like, what the fuck? He just wants to talk.
Yeah. Are you crazy?
And if at this point he just wants to talk, if earlier he wanted her dead, then what's changed his mind? Nothing that I can think of.
Right. But I mean, look, since we're talking about a film with a female lead and, we're talking about, there's probably, I can guarantee there's going to be a lot of women empowerment concepts and are blatantly in the film. There's a big thing in, self-defense, number one, but especially is taught in female self-defense, never go to a second location, so a lot of this is, if these guys just want to talk, she doesn't know really that's what they want. And it's so the whole car scene and them trying to take her out over to another place, it's not part of her plan. And it's not safe for her as a spy, especially. Because if Bremovich just wanted to talk, he could have just showed up somewhere. Like the club that they gave her the card for.
Oh, there definitely were easier ways to go about it
right.
than basically abducting her.
Right, which was so. I mean, I understand her fighting back. It's a very dangerous situation, especially for someone of her value and her experience. Like, she's not just gonna like roll up when dudes just show up with the muscle and they're like, "You're coming with me." Like, go fuck yourself. So so I understand like the fight back and the kill in the car scene and then the fight back in East Berlin at the theater, but like if Bromovich really just wanted to talk, he should have just showed up. So
that's what I'm saying. That's my overriding theme of this entire movie. You push one thing in,
right,
and something else will stick out.
Yeah.
Someone's getting minus 5 points here. Something doesn't make sense, and that applies to almost every situation through the movie, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I that's what I'm saying. Like, there's a lot. I think that's where maybe most of our disagreements are. I think we might be talking about two different perspectives. Like the situations you were talking about. Like, I can see the idea behind them, but what you're saying is, in the whole piece, that small piece in the whole puzzle towards how it ended, it doesn't make sense. And I think that's really where things get messy, is how it ended.
They set themselves up badly for failure with the whole triple agent twist.
Right.
It makes everything, that's.
Yeah, but
the story bites off more than it can swallow.
Oh, absolutely. I completely agree with you. But I don't think it's the triple agent twist that messes it up. I think it's how they executed it, or at least concluded the triple agent. I don't think there was enough there wasn't enough developed for the motivations of the different characters or factions to explain her like being a triple agent. So I don't think it's specifically the triple agent thing. I think I don't think it was executed.
Well, I'll just say this: if she wasn't working for Bremovich, then all of my complaints about the KGB interactions she has, they completely go away.
Yeah, but then now you lose the mystery of who's Satchel.
Exactly. Which that's part of the story. It's the story. The story and the plot don't get along well. That's what I think. That's what I think of this movie.
I think when we were talking about, I think you said it really well. The story is a great story. Like, I mean, we both love this movie.
Great story.
Yeah, and it's a great story. And what you're saying is the plot. You were saying the plot was used to support the story, so it's kind of like forgivable. You know what I mean? Versus the story trying to drive the plot, I guess. Right?
I think it's not well. I think it's more like, I feel like one person wrote the plot and another person wrote the story.
And then they had to fix it in post.
That's pretty much how I feel.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that okay.
She does have to have a secret, because the core story, right? Never minding the plot. I think the core story, we already said it's a MacGuffin thing, but the core story is her and Percival are ostensibly supposed to be working together to get the list. However, unbeknownst to them about each other, each of them has an individual interest in getting the list for themselves. Right. Kind of like,
and that's
that's a classic story, like Treasure of the Sierra Madre or something, or the plot of, where the people are, just planning to backstab each other while they're smiling. They've secretly got an agenda, and the movie wants to keep her secret agenda super secret from us all the way till the end. Through the course of the movie, we get hints and hints of what Percival's motivation is.
Right, and like I think you really hit the what's interesting about the story and the characters is Percival and Lorraine's pretty much interaction with each other and how they develop interacting with each other, because they both have a self-interest in the list aside from the supposed we're MI6 and we have a mission, and you watch Percival's fall from grace, and then you discover the mystery of Lorraine's identity, so to speak, quote unquote, or multiple identities. So that's what makes the story interesting. but the general plot is this MacGuffin concept and these big twists of like, oh, he's playing him and she's playing her, and you know, it's oh.
Sure. You wanna hear some plus spy points for the KGB?
Yes.
Okay. Now this is just a theory, but I happen to like it.
Okay.
Percival's supposed to pick her up at the airport, and he shows up late. That's important so that they can show up, and him not be there.
Right.
And why is he late? Well, he wakes up in bed. He's actually tied to the bed. Looks like he's had quite a night.
Yeah.
And I like to think that the KGB, that these girls are either KGB agents or were paid to like show this guy a wild time,
right?
Make sure he stays up really, really late, and
right.
Oh, by the way, also, do some kinky tying him to the bedpost kind of thing.
So he gets stuck, right?
Yeah.
I like that. I like that a lot, and that fits because Spyglass, when he talks about having memorized the list, he lists out everything about Percival. He was like, "Oh, you go to this chicken ranch type place often, and your favorite girl is what, Marie or something." So.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay. Yeah. Got it.
So a lot of that fits. So I think you're right. So I think that's a gem you found that I didn't spot.
Okay.
I'm jealous.
Now here's one of my. It's such a common movie crime. Is when she does flip out and start attacking them in the car, the KGB guys in the tunnel. Mm-hmm. I don't know why this just flies past everyone and nobody ever complains about it. It just mystifies me why the very first thing that the driver should do is hit the brakes, stop the car.
Yeah.
There's a fight happening in your car. Instead, in movie logic, and everybody does this, the driver fucking puts the hammer down.
Yeah.
And speeds up the car. Even while he's like fighting for his life, the car will accelerate and keep going like super fast. And it's super exciting and kinetic and wonderful, but it doesn't make a goddamn bit of sense. And
no, but without it, we wouldn't have the
really
crazy
need to
car
stop
crash.
doing that.
Yeah.
They need to stop it.
Yeah. But without it, we won't have the cool car crash.
Well, there was also a thing, at some point though, it will stop. And I know this because like I can name another one that used to bug me forever. It was in every single movie. You could not get away from it. And then one day it just stopped. People stopped doing it. Can I tell you about it?
Yeah.
Up to a certain point in every single movie or TV show you ever saw, if I pointed a gun at your face, you would not take me seriously.
Oh, yeah.
And then I would cock the gun. And then you would take me seriously.
Yeah. No, but there's that other one that you hate. The villain falling from great heights.
I really thought we were done with that one, and to some extent, I think we are. The Old Guard had a nice twist on it, I thought.
Yeah.
Where, it's not, I'm not gonna, knock you off a great height. I'm gonna fucking plummet 17 stories with you to your death because I'm fucking immortal.
Yeah.
If you're gonna put a twist on it, that's fine. That's fine. What was the other? Oh, great time just talking about tropes. I like to think, remember in the fight scene at the end, the big fucking stairwell fight scene in the tenement, at the end, little nerdy Spyglass gets his one hit in,
Uh-huh.
With I forget, he just bashes the bad guy over the head with something. And that gives Lorraine like a necessary moment to recover. And that's something we always see, or at least always used to see, always the damsel in distress. That would be like her only contribution.
Right, and it's her, the nerdy scientist, like autistic photographic memory guy is the damsel in distress, and our femme fatale is the big hero.
And I like to think that, because remember, the director is at heart an action choreographer. Like
Mhm.
that's his trade. He was Keanu's stunt double in all the Matrix movies.
Uh-huh.
And then, he got massively into fight choreography, and then he got to co-direct the John Wick movies. And then again, this is his first movie that he's directing.
Uh-huh.
And just because of the director's background, he's got to know fight scenes so intimately and so well and be so aware of the tropes that I like to think that he put that little thing in, that little gender swap thing moment, intentionally. I think it's a little flourish.
Yeah. No, I agree. No, I think it's blatantly obvious that's what he went for, and an action director like that would definitely have known all. He probably has watched every action scene ever, and was like, oh yeah, we got to have the damsel, he's breaking a glass something.
Right. He's forgotten more about fight scene tropes than we will ever know.
Yeah, absolutely.
A little more KGB, she meets him at the cafe. I guess I was going to save this for when we talk about Lorraine, but I guess I want to talk about it now. Or just at least to mention that, he wants to talk to her, right?
Right.
Bremovich.
Right.
He wants to know what she knows. He gets a chance at the cafe. LaSalle interrupts them. Okay, understood. He backs off. He doesn't try to force the issue, which is cool of him. But he knows exactly where she is. She's at, what I assume, not, maybe he doesn't own the cafe, but, it's kind of like his spot.
Uh-huh.
Just fucking follow her right after. Just let her have her conversation with French lady, and then grab her up or make your play. Instead, he waits until she goes to East Berlin and then sends his murder crew after her. Eh?
Well, East Berlin is his territory. It's kind of like, Art of War type of stuff. Berlin's swarming with, West European spies. East Berlin is swarming with,
Good point. So you would theorize that the cafe is a place that he uses as a place to meet people in West Berlin.
Right.
Okay.
And he might. I mean, I'm not trying to invalidate what you're saying. I'm just kind of processing the strategy, and I know we had to grab for a lot of straws in this, but it's like he's behind enemy lines. West Berlin, East Berlin. That's his block. That'd be like if shit happened over where we are versus we went over to I don't know, fucking Timbuktu and tried to do it's a different ball game. He knows the ins and outs and the what have yous in East Berlin.
I'll take it. I got a good segue into Bakhtin.
Okay.
So as we're leaving the KGB and going toward Bakhtin, I would say that the KGB would have been a lot smarter to focus on finding Bakhtin. Instead, they seem just completely obsessed with Lorraine, which they don't have any reason. I mean, I get it, they could have concerns, she landed in Berlin, she didn't tell us she was coming, would have been nice, kind of thing. But, they don't have any real reason to think that she's the key to everything, but that's how they act.
Right.
They know that Bakhtin is the key to everything. They should know more, because Bakhtin is basically a KGB guy that's just, it seems to me like he's just stopped answering phone calls from his boss. Well,
yeah, he went rogue.
Right.
He joined the free market.
Right.
His win condition is basically make the money.
What I'm saying though, before we leave KGB, though, is that Bakhtin should be an easy of everyone else, anyways. The KGB are in a better position to find Bakhtin than anyone else. They've been working with him for presumably years.
Oh, yeah, and they probably know all of his safe houses and stuff.
Right. Of all the people of all the factions in the movie, it should be harder for him to hide from them than anybody else.
Oh my God, I didn't even think about that. And there was so much I was trying to like play around with in my head. I didn't even think that should be my worst tradecraft. Well, it's not going to be my number one. You know, maybe I'm going to make that my number 3. I'm going to have to edit that. That's a good point. I don't like that at all. Yeah, I was going to make it her not grabbing the pistol in the fight scene. I'll just mention that later. But yeah, no, I think I'm gonna upgrade this to my number 3 worst tradecraft. They should have just went after Bactine the whole time. What are they even doing?
Right, except the movie isn't about Bactine, so
right,
or the story isn't about Bactine,
right.
Even though the plot, to make more sense, would have. That's their play, I think. And then since now we're on Bactine, I think it also maybe not as compellingly, but maybe also goes back the other way. If he wants to sell the watch, I think it would be easiest for him to just sell it to the KGB. Again, those are the people he knows. You know,
but he's gone rogue. He's gone rogue, and they're going to kill him.
Sure.
And he's in West Berlin. What he should have, instead of putting it up for auction, I don't know.
But he's got contacts and stuff. I mean, even if he's making a total dick play,
right?
Like, I feel like, I don't know, selling the watch to, you know, I don't know, telling my boss like, hey, fuck you, I got the watch like you ordered, but instead of just handing it over, I want this much $1 million or whatever.
Right.
Should be easier than going and trying to sell it to people that have been my enemies for decades. I don't know. I don't want to stick too hard on that.
I don't know. From the stories of KGB and how they handled things on the money handoff or something, they would have found him somehow.
I guess.
Yeah. I don't know. No, but that's definitely a good point. I guess that goes back to your cartoon analogy.
Stick one thing in, something else sticks out. Okay.
Right.
And then, I didn't have much else to say about him except that I also don't understand, like, because MI6 in the briefing, they don't appear to know that Bactine has gone rogue. They do mention the thing he never got on his flight to Moscow, which maybe that was what the movie was like, how the movie was trying to tell us. That he'd gone rogue, but they should have made it more explicit, because otherwise, if MI6, CIA, French intelligence, everyone else, like, doesn't know that Bactine isn't still working for and loyal to the KGB, then nobody has any reason to think that he didn't hand over the watch long ago. Like, long before Lorraine long before they even had a chance to get Lorraine, like, into MI6 headquarters to appraise her of the situation.
Right.
It makes sense for Percival to... He said... I don't know. He says if Bactine was going to give it to the KGB, he would have done it long ago. But how would you know?
What about Gascoigne?
Gascoigne. Just minor quibbles here, in that we're given reason to believe that Lorraine was intimate with Gascoigne in the past, and we're given reason to think that Percival and Gascoigne's friendship. Now we know they're working together, but for some reason that photograph she finds tells her that their friendship had started like longer before they started working together.
Right.
Both of which are really interesting pieces of information that go absolutely nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know. Just throwing it out there. There's so many like loose threads on this sweater. Like, it was very difficult to keep count. And I just want to flag these and move on. You know, there's several pieces of information we get about Gascoigne that are presented as if they are impactful, intriguing.
Right.
But they're not.
Right. Yeah.
Nobody cares about Gascoigne.
No. But apparently they cared about LaSalle. was another interesting one.
Yep. Now here we're starting to get out of the minor leagues and into some major characters.
Yeah. She's basically a newbie French intelligence agent, which we're kind of told, and I think we can believe is the fact. It's kind of hinted that she's working with Percival under some capacity, but she's also like spying on him too. She's only been working for like a year, I think.
That's true. That's what she says, and that's I believe it. But I want to back up there for a second. You say it's hinted that she was working with Percival in some capacity. That was one of my complaints about the movie. Like, I never got that. I didn't see that. I didn't see her and Percival having any kind of relationship, working, friendly, otherwise, just any interaction whatsoever.
Well, I think the tape recording at the end of the movie when Lorraine goes to Percival's place and there's that tape playing, it's of her and LaSalle. Spoiler alert: LaSalle and Lorraine have a little bit of a romance, but that recording isn't from the jacket. There's like a shot where she finds like a bug in something, and I think he was using her, and that's why at the end of the movie when she makes her stupid call, which we'll talk about in a little bit, she's like, "You fucked me, blah blah blah. I know how to play this game too. I can play it better than you," So there was probably some sort of like interaction or deal, or I guess passing of information to each other.
Okay. I just feel like the movie let me down on understanding like how Percival and LaSalle were connected in any way. Now it is true, LaSalle spends most of the movie running around on her motorcycle, just taking photographs of everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Just gathering intelligence. I give her some like kind of minor plus spy points for just kind of hanging back and collecting information instead of like running in guns blazing like everyone else in the movie seems to be doing.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, that's it. They said that, when her and Lorraine meet at that club, and she legitimately looks scared, like genuinely, not legitimately, she genuinely looks scared, and she's like, I've only been doing this for a year, like over and over again. We've heard, I think probably like a few times, that she's way in over her head. This is way above her pay grade. She's like a newbie agent, and she's like, I only did this because I thought it was exciting.
I like that as a character.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely like it as a character.
She's not getting any support from her French superiors, apparently.
Yeah.
So instead, she's got to make her play for the one player on the board that looks like maybe someone that can help her out.
Yeah.
Which also could be plus spy points there.
Yeah.
But it's not clear whether she was like really trying to make a play for Lorraine sexually in order to prosecute her mission. It feels like it's more like LaSalle is just a naive girl that, just likes other girls. And
well, I think that's what it is, and that's what Percival says when Lorraine asks Percival, "Who's this chick that's following me?" And he's like, "Well, you're a beautiful woman," And I with the song that played twice that you don't like, I think she was genuinely attracted to her. And she says, I only got into this business because I thought it'd be exciting. So she's in it for like the romance, the romantic ideal of what a spy is told to be in the story, versus you have Lorraine, who's like this like hard, experienced professional. And she even confessed that the only time she was honest with LaSalle was like, relationships are for the benefit or whatever, nothing more or something.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, your eyes change when you're honest, and blah blah blah. So I think that's what it really is. I think she's just kind of smitten with her, and she's trying to look cool as an agent, but she realizes she's way in over her head.
Yeah. I wish, and maybe in the comic, there's more done with her. Like, there was a lot of potential there for the kind of situation in movies, and some movies are entirely built around this situation of like two, like you have like three people and you have like kind of one in the middle, and the one in the middle, like let's say it's person A, B, and C with B in the middle, and B is always telling A like, hey, you can't trust C, don't trust C. And B is always also going over to C and saying like, oh, don't trust A is gonna fuck you in the ass. Or to have a situation where like they were between Percival and Lorraine making plays to confuse, in this case it would be person B, LaSalle, in the middle, get some scenes of Percival telling LaSalle like, hey, listen, this Lorraine chick, she's bad fucking news,
Right.
Don't she's got an agenda. Don't listen to her.
Right.
And Lorraine like kind of making the same play, like playing a little ping pong with her between. It just seems like lost opportunity. I mean, she does have a function in the story.
Right.
Or at least in the plot. She doesn't really have a function so much in the story, but in the plot, I mean, she's there to give a tip, a big, supposedly impactful tip, something she whispers to Lorraine, which Lorraine doesn't want us to hear, doesn't want anyone to hear.
Right.
What she has to say about Percival, and we never actually find out what LaSalle told Lorraine.
Well, I think what she told her was that LaSalle's playing you, and Percival's playing you, and I think that was information that Percival had her feed to Lorraine, which also doesn't make sense, and that's the only sense I can make of a lot of that whole interaction, especially with the tape recording at the end at Percival's place, because I think Percival knew that Lorraine would come to his place after, realizing what's going on, and then he's not there, but that tape is playing, and he's basically trying to shove it in Lorraine's face, like, that girl you've been hooking up with, she's actually been screwing you and playing you the whole time, blah blah blah, And
well, at some point, Lorraine. So there's a bug in Lorraine's coat, which she will state in debriefing. Of course, like, it's all like, I don't know. There's so many things that, people can say, especially in spy movies, that, since there's so much lying going on, it's really hard to tell when people are saying what they really think or just what they want the listener to believe. But, she makes a point of telling MI6 that she found the recording device in her coat that she said she maintains Percival planted it there,
right?
But that it was of French manufacture, so that would be a reason for her to distrust LaSalle.
Right.
But again, I don't understand why, except that it serves the way they want everything to end out, which is basically, for all this to work too at the end, like Lorraine just has to have like this mass of recordings of everyone. She has to have recordings of Percival. She has to have recordings of Bremovich.
Right.
And for some reason, she needs to not have any recorded evidence of what LaSalle told her. But there, I get a quibble too. Again, push one thing in, something else sticks out. In the debriefing, when they ask her, what did LaSalle tell you? Keeping in mind that the debriefing happens after all the other events of the movie, so Lorraine has full knowledge of how everything plays out. She says, she didn't tell me anything, which is minus 5 points. It's a perfect opportunity. You have two people that are dead, LaSalle and Percival. Mm-hmm. You could say anything. You could say she told you anything you want. Say that she told you that, hey, Percival told me that he's Satchel.
Right, exactly, yeah.
But you can't do that because they want to intercut the debriefing to build the tension, like within the movie, so they don't want to give that information to the audience. I don't think that our director, remember, it's his first time, and he didn't come at this from the usual route that you usually take to becoming a director of a film, right?
Right.
I don't think he handled the whole like intercutting of the debriefing very well. Like a lot of it feels like something that, like, you know, you've seen. What's it like when, I don't know, when they talk about like it's what like an alien, or when like AI, like they have AI like try to put stories together. It's like, I've seen enough of them. I should be able to make it. You know,
Right.
You just hit these certain beats, but should be more to it than that.
Yeah, well, I think it might be an issue with writing, but I don't know. There might have been. You never know, because a lot of this is a lot of people putting together a movie. So I'm not sure it would just be him, especially since he's more of an action director. It might have just been writing.
Well, I'll just throw out like two theories of what LaSalle reasonably could have told Lorraine about Percival. She could have just said like, "Hey, this guy has gone completely rogue."
Right.
Like, you know, MI6 might have their doubts about him. It's for real. He's fucking playing for himself. Trust me.
Right.
That's something I think she could have deduced. She also possibly, I guess, could somehow know that. I think we'll have to come back to this too, as to whether or not it's true. But if Percival did drop dimes on Lorraine along the way, for instance, the big one that she suspects or claims to suspect is that he was the only person that knew that she visited Gascoigne's apartment, and then all the dudes showed up.
Right.
And she thinks that Percival did that. But so if that was true, then that's also a piece of information LaSalle could have given her.
Right. I think it was just that he was playing her. Because there's a shot where she says something like that, but I don't think we'll ever really know. But I do want to talk about once, I guess everything kind of gets revealed ish, when Lorraine comes to tell LaSalle that her life's in danger and she has to get out as soon as she can. That Percival's fucked I think it was like he fucked the both of us. You know what I mean?
Okay, wait. Before you get there.
Okay.
How though? Like what? I mean, I understand what it is that Lorraine is telling LaSalle, but does that make any sense? Like, what power does Percival have over LaSalle? None.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think they were working together. There's enough dialogue to show that there was something going on, and especially the tape recording towards the end, I believe, shows that. Well, actually, this is the timing.
Sure. And I'll let you proceed as long as I just interject again that little bit of like just maybe one scene with LaSalle and Percival could have been enough to justify this. I just wanted to throw in like LaSalle doesn't have any actual reason to be flipped out about the fact that Percival has anything on her.
That makes what I'm about to talk about even worse.
Let's hear it.
The next thing she does after Lorraine tells her to pack her bags and get the fuck out of town, she calls Percival and says, "Look, you think you can fuck me, or whatever? Like, I know all your dirty secrets. I can play this game better than you can." There was no reason to do that. She just provoked him. She just provoked him to come to her apartment.
It's massive.
And when I saw this scene, she immediately places a gun under her pillow. And I was like, oh, okay. When he comes to get her or whatever, I was like, oh, well, maybe she planned on him coming. Except while she's packing her bag, she's standing around with fucking headphones on. So I'm making this my number 2 and my number 1 worst tradecraft.
I'll meet you on number 1.
Yeah.
That call, it's absolutely unnecessary. And that's always going to get really major -5 points from us. When you have information about the other person You don't share it with them.
Right.
You use it.
Right. Exactly. And what she basically did was, and whatever, like the movie made her look like a super rookie. Why is she standing in her apartment with headphones on so she can't hear anybody? Like coming into her apartment when she knows that when she's been told her life's in danger and she's got to leave. Not only did she like provoke the monster to come after her, she also like set herself up to be in a very dangerous situation, which got her killed. She just puts on some headphones and like draws a cute little like note, packs her bags all slowly, and like broods over like her relationship with Lorraine, listening to this song that was special for her.
Don't forget to write Lorraine's name on that envelope in super big letters with a Sharpie, too, while you're at it.
Right. So anybody showing up would be like, Lorraine, you mean the agent that everybody knows?
Bum, bum, bum.
Yeah.
Got a couple of very minor characters in the film that, I don't know, do we have anything on them? We got... Watchmaker. I was never quite clear like what his deal was. Did you have any thoughts?
I mean, like, you and I have watched enough spy movies to know who that guy is. He just wasn't developed. He's just a general place of contact. From spy movies, there's always like this network of people that do stuff on the side. Like, he's obviously a top-notch watchmaker. So he's kind of like. Do you think he's neutral? Yeah.
The wiki claims that he's a CIA asset, but I didn't get that.
That might be in the comic.
It's possible. You know, when she visits him, Percival hears what they talk about. Again, that whole thing of like you just have to assume everyone's bugging everyone, or at any given point, like the scriptwriter will decide that there was a bug somewhere, so that they can justify anything they want to fucking do. The Watchmaker also has a role of connecting her to the Bill Skarsgård character. That's her. Let's see. She wants to have a contact in East Berlin that doesn't go through Percival, which is smart of her. Plus spy points.
Right.
And, Bill Skarsgård doesn't get a whole
maybe that's why he's a CIA asset.
Right, yeah, Skarsgård could be CIA. Because also, remember, Skarsgård...
No. What I'm saying is that's what might justify Watchmaker as being a CIA asset.
No, I agree. Because, maybe... Because Skarsgård could be CIA as well.
Yes.
So,
and if she's CIA the whole time, that's why when they're gonna take Spyglass across the border, she was like, "Fine, we'll do it your way, but I want the papers to be drawn up by my guy," and her guy is Skarsgård.
Right. Yeah.
She trusts him, and he's probably CIA. So that would explain a lot for that.
Because remember, also, Skarsgård doesn't just help her in East Berlin; he also helps her at the end of the movie. When she flies to Paris to kill Brezhnev. He's in that scene as well.
Yes. He pretends to be a bellboy with the bell staff that are going to come clean up the bodies.
Right. So
yeah.
That implies to me that he's attached to her, loyal to her in ways beyond just being like, a random, I don't know, mercenary, I'll help, whoever for the highest bidder, make some passports for you kind of shit in East Berlin. Right. And then, I wanted to give I'm giving some plus spy points to Skarsgård too. I do appreciate a guy who just hangs out in the background, doesn't attract attention to himself, and does his fucking job.
Yeah, I also love that his one of his what are they, identity? Sorry, I'm blanking on but that he was an ambassador, which is fucking great. That's how good his like paperwork is. I like that a lot.
Yeah, me too. Like I like I called out the waiter in Man Who Knew Too Much, 1956.
Mm-hmm.
Just this guy in the background, quietly doing his job.
Yeah.
And I really like the guy in The Company. Episode 1 of The Company, there was that one guy in that worked with Tariti and what's his face, Chris Evans.
Mm-hmm.
No, not Chris Evans.
Yeah, Chris Evans.
No, that's Captain America.
Chris O'Donnell.
Yeah, Chris O'Donnell. That worked with them, and again, never attracted attention to himself. I'm always appreciative of those guys in spy movies.
Right. They show up and do their job, and they're just in the background, collecting pieces of puzzles.
So yeah, I think we've done as best as we can. I think of talking through all the factions, the minor characters. Obviously, we've mostly left off the table our two principal people. That's Lorraine and Percival. That's who the movie's really about.
Uh-huh.
But let's go ahead and wrap this up for right now. We'll come back and talk about those guys next week. What do you say?
As always, the best way to make sure you don't miss out on that is to hit that subscribe button on iTunes, Google, or your favorite podcast app. Also, you can find updates on our Facebook page or website, spieslikeus.net. And please, if you can help us out, give us some feedback by rating us and leaving comments. We're always trying to improve the show, and your thoughts would be a big help.
The preceding transmission sampled the songs Ice Cold by Audionautics, Enter the Party by Kevin MacLeod, and sound effects from freesound.org. Attributions and links are found at spieslikeus.net. Editing by Todd Hostetler.